the Kings come away with an easy but important win against the Washington Wizards at home. A Wizards team that has 6 wins on the season, that is 1 win away from their home floor on the season, and a Wizards that honestly just play some disgusting basketball. This was, a fun watch as a Kings fan. It was fast paced, lots of dunks, and that's all cool. But I really do feel bad for Wizards fans having to watch this because I feel like there's a correct way to tank in the NBA. You look at Utah, you look at Brooklyn. Sometimes you trade away the good players, sometimes you sit them down, and the organization, the general manager and the front office, they make those decisions. But when you put the guys out there for a game day, there should be better product than what the Wizards are doing. There's a reason I don't watch the Wizards on League Pass ever. I just feel like they tank in the completely wrong way, and they might get rewarded with the first overall pick, and it might work for them. But just the way they play with seemingly so little structure, guys just putting up shots, ending games with a horrible lineup. Because other tanking teams, of course they want to play their young guys, but at the end of the day, with coaches like Jordi Fernandez in Brooklyn or Will Hardy in Utah, or even Monty Williams last year in Detroit, like those head coaches were putting out lineups that they thought could best win games. But with this Wizards team, like Brian Keefe, it feels like he must be, getting told by the front office who to play and how to play, because this is just an awful basketball team, and it doesn't feel like they have much structure, and they don't play their best lineup to close. And so when they were kind of hanging around late with the Kings, it was all fine because Jonas Valanciunas was always going to come out of the game for Alex Sarr. And I get they've had better nights than this, and guys like Alex Sarr and Kuzma and Poole, everyone in their starting lineup have had better nights than this. But yeah, I just think it's pretty awful the way they play. And I thought that the Kings started out in the correct way, taking advantage of it. And Sabonis was the main guy that took advantage. And he always just dominates guys like Alex Sarr, these super young guys who aren't strong yet, who are super lanky. A guy like Alex Sarr, he's a shot blocker. He's supposed to be a shot blocker. But when you look at what Domas did to Wemby the first time they kind of played last season, or Chet, Alex Sarr, the same thing. He just dominates them. He dominates these shot blockers. Walker Kessler is another example of shot blockers. Like, this is Sabonis' favorite matchup. And so I felt like the Kings came out with the right energy. And I think it was started by Sabonis. He was putting pressure on Alex Sarr on the perimeter when Sarr was catching the ball. He was putting a lot of pressure on him, going for steals, not necessarily getting them. And then the Kings were fine with switching Sabonis onto Kuzma. And then Sabonis was just letting Kuzma take these step back threes, sidestep threes, letting him chuck up shots. And Kuzma happily obliged and went 3 for 15 on the night. And man, I do not want the Kings to trade for Kuzma. Maybe if he got traded here, he would buy into a role, but it's just hard for me to see with his personality that he would do that. But the Kings just were so easily baiting the Wizards into bad shots, and they knocked some of them down, and the Kings could not hit a shot to save their lives. And so that's why the game was close to start out with. Offensively, the Kings were not precise. They couldn't knock down their threes. They couldn't knock down any jumpers for that matter. They turned the ball over a couple times. Fox had one where he tried to push the pace and then he turned it over. It was the right idea, but he just turned it over. But the Kings were able to stay right in it because Sabonis was just bullying Alex Sarr underneath, getting multiple dunks. Monk got inside a few times. Sabonis found Keegan on a nice cut who dunked on Alex Sarr, I believe. And the Kings just kept the Wizards out of the paint. And the shots that the Wizards did get in the paint were Alex Sarr trying to throw it up against Sabonis, and that wasn't really working. The Kings offense, it was sloppy. The passes were kind of going everywhere, and they were bobbling balls, and it was kind of interesting because it was fast-paced. They were trying to move the ball. All of the ideas were right, but they couldn't hit the pass that they wanted to hit. It was always a little off. They weren't able to really knock down their threes. So it made for some interesting plays that got a little crazy, but a lot of times they would somehow come out on the right end of it. And Malik Monk finally hit a three, kind of a bailout three on a possession where things were going kind of wild. And with Sabonis was just dominating inside. And so he was the guy that was the main driving force for the offense. But I think the two other guys that were super important were Malik Monk and Keon Ellis, because those were the guys that knocked down almost all of the threes for the Kings. I mean, when you look at the 3-point shots, Kings went 12 for 39. 11 of those came from Monk, Keon, and Sabonis combined. The other one was from Alex Len in garbage time. And so it was Sabonis with 2 straight threes after pushing the ball, and Fox was finding him for threes. And Fox, while he didn't really have his offense going, he was putting on a playmaking display, and he was finding Sabonis for those 2 threes. And then Sabonis finally got the steal he had been looking for all game, where he comes around the back as they're trying to entry out on the perimeter, and he knocks the ball away and gets a dunk for a nice little 8-0 run by himself. And so Sabonis hit 2 important threes to really build a lead. I think Malik hit important threes to kind of bail out the Kings and stop any Wizards momentum from ever developing, because the Kings didn't blow them out throughout this whole game. I think he hit timely shots, and then Keon hit super timely shots as well. And the Kings needed those shots because they just needed some threes to go down. Yes, this is a horrible Wizards team, and you held them to 100 points on the night, but it's the NBA. You need to hit some shots. And so those 2 guys and 3 guys were super important to actually providing enough offense for the Kings to win this game. And Keon also came in. He made a nice defensive play to get a steal. And then he missed a wide open Malik Monk at the rim for a dunk. Instead, he passes it to Lyles, who misses. Kings get offensive rebound. Sabonis misses. And it's funny because I feel like 5 times now in the past few weeks, Keon has tried to throw oops up to Malik, and they've never worked. And so now the one time it really was wide open is the time he doesn't throw it. So Keon still struggling a bit, and either tomorrow or the next day, I'll be releasing a mid-season episode evaluating individual players that I've already recorded. And one of the things I talked about with Keon was he comes up with so many steals and leads the break, and then he makes bad decisions. And so that we saw another example of that today, because he's so good at getting these steals and he's so bad at converting. I would rather him just pull up from 3 every time at this point. But the Kings, they just forced a ton of turnovers in that first half. But the Kings didn't convert too many on the other side. It definitely could have been better. Kings ended this game with 17 fast break points to Washington's 13. So the Kings didn't really convert on the fast break, couldn't hit any threes, and yet still were up pretty much the entire game. And the only thing that kept the Wizards in this game was Jonas Valanciunas. And it's really crazy how he turns into an all-NBA center every time he plays the Kings. He went 9 for 11 and 5 for 6 from the line, 23 points, 12 rebounds in 23 minutes. That was insane. And I was hoping that the Kings would throw bodies at him at one point in the first half, because the only guy you really can't leave on the Wizards is Corey Kispert, at least at the time that I wanted this to happen. But it pretty much was just like, okay, if Valanciunas can beat us, then so be it. But he's going to get his 23 points and 12 rebounds. Just try to take away everyone else. And obviously that worked, but it was frustrating watching Valanciunas give us the work. Gave me Pelicans flashbacks from last season. Alex Len played quite a bit in this game. Sabonis got into a little bit of foul trouble, so Len ended up playing 16 minutes in total. He did some nice things early on, got some offensive rebounds. He had 3 of those in this game, was getting some nice tap outs. But then, of course, he had to foul a 3-point shooter with 0.1 seconds left. So I don't know if it was us trying to match up with Valanciunas, or if we just wanted to give Len another shot. I'm not sure what it was. But against the Wizards, you can kind of okay, Len, and you get another shot. And it started off great with those offensive rebounds, but it kind of went downhill from there. DeMar got going a little bit towards the end of the first quarter. He drew a foul on a 3. Then he hit the classic toe on the line 2-pointer. We also saw the Kings go zone a couple of times in that first quarter, and one of them resulted in a turnover. Kuzma tried to fire a pass into Sarr, who wasn't ready for it down low. The other one resulted in Valanciunas, of course, scoring down low, getting deep position on Len. So again, we're seeing the Kings try to mix in this zone look with, solid effectiveness usually. Another thing I think that we saw a lot of in the first quarter from Fox was he was just going hard. He was really trying to get into the paint, and I love that from him. He wasn't settling from the outside very much. He was trying to push the pace, and he lost the ball a few times. He was kind of bobbling it inside, maybe going a little too fast at times, had a turnover, but I think the idea was really good for him to try to get inside, draw some fouls, kick out to shooters, and look what happens. He gets 13 assists on the game because the other team just has to respect that drive so much. The second quarter is where things got really interesting. It kind of turned into a bit of an all-star game in the second quarter. Maybe not right away. Right away, like Kevin Huerter got in there and just was missing everything and turning the ball over and doing everything wrong. It's hard to watch. He ended up being the only guy on the Kings that was negative in the game, a -1 in a 23-point win, 0 for 4 from 3. So he came in, and it wasn't pretty. Also, Fox missed a couple from deep to start the second quarter. But there was a really fast tempo in that second quarter. The ball was moving for the Kings, but like I said, not super precise. It was kind of wild passes, guys trying to gain control of the ball, not necessarily passes always leading to a basket. But the Kings got so many steals, and they were flying around in transition. The ideas were all there, but the execution just wasn't quite there. Whether that means missing a three or just making the wrong pass in transition. And the one guy who actually ended up hitting a three was Keon off a dribble handoff with Len. And he takes a dribble back into the corner and hits a three. And that's something we've seen a couple times. We saw him kind of do a similar thing against Steven Adams last game. So he's really confident from three right now. And he's hitting those step backs against mismatches, which is good to see. The Kings were missing a bunch of open threes. Like Kevin Huerter was missing a bunch. I mean, Fox was missing. Keegan was missing. Lyles was missing. Everyone was missing from three. But while the Kings were missing, then the Wizards were just coming back on the other end and handing the ball to the Kings. There were definitely some good things that the Kings were doing defensively to be able to bother ball handlers, but some of these were just drives and then throwing the ball right to a King, throwing it right to DeMar. I think Alex Len caught a pass or two from the Wizards, like they were just handing it right back to us. And Fox and DeMar kind of got it going. Fox was just getting to the line, chipping in a few points here and there, and DeMar getting to the mid-rangers here and there. Because the offense, it wasn't great in that second quarter, but they were just like chipping in enough with all of the Wizards' turnovers to start building out a lead. One funny thing that I saw in that second quarter was DeMar, he could have totally stood in there and took a charge, but he backed out of it. And he's done this 2 or 3 other times where he's getting in there to take a charge and then he just like doesn't stand in there and he like takes a step back. So I think he's just gotten to the age where he doesn't want to take charges anymore. Like I think at the last second, he's like, man, this is going to hurt and hurt for days. I don't want to do this anymore. Because that's one of the things that he does well defensively, usually is take charges, but seems like he's phasing that out in this part of his career. Monk hit a three that was kind of needed after Alex Sarr got to the line a few times. Fox had a nice pass into Sabonis, who was sealed off Sarr in the paint, which Sabonis did a million times. And then this is kind of when the All-Star game started. Monk, just with an incredible move and a finish, he forced a turnover by Poole, him and Sabonis trapped up top. And then guys started getting fancy. Monk was just feeling himself, and he crosses a guy up and then fails to finish inside. Then Sabonis comes down with a rebound or something, goes behind the back against, I think, maybe Koulibaly. But then his pass inside to Keegan. Keegan can't quite handle it. So it was like the tempo was high. Guys were having fun. The Kings were up 10 plus. But it was like, the Wizards sticking around a little too much for my liking. It's like if we could just convert more of these transition opportunities where the Wizards are handing you the ball, that would be nice to really put this away. Felt like there were a few times where DeMar kind of fell asleep on a closeout. Maybe Fox a little bit of the same. So there are a few open threes. So, it's just a little bit of the Kings taking their foot off the gas pedal just a little bit there. Jonas Valanciunas got that rebound over Domas and did like a little twinkle toes spin and finish. He looks like a ballerina out there. It's funny. He really does, like I said, turn into an all NBA player against the Kings. But even though the Kings may have taken their foot off the gas pedal a little bit, maybe their focus wasn't entirely there. I mean, there's a reason for that, and it is because it's the Wizards. So they were still coming down. Fox feeding Sabonis for a big jam. Fox had a nice finish inside off a really quick drive, and then DeMar hit a nice midi to go up 14. So I think 14 was a pretty comfortable lead at that point. To start the second half, Wizards knocked down a few threes, kind of like they did to start the first half. And just like the first half, at the start, Sabonis again was bullying Alex Sarr inside. He had that one-handed pump fake. That was just so funny because it's like, how are you falling for this? Like, I know he shoots that shot sometimes, but he doesn't make it very much because it's just not a good shot. So it was just a funny looking pump fake that got Sarr in the air. And then another thing I saw was Keegan making a strong move inside and then finding Sabonis. Because Keegan, a lot of times he will kind of go charging inside with a strong move, but then it's like he doesn't finish. He takes the contact, but then doesn't really know what to do after that. But he had a really nice feed to Sabonis inside for a score. But the second half, the Kings just totally let off the gas pedal. Maybe not totally, but I mean, again, they couldn't hit a three. And that's a big part of why it was even kind of close. You know, if the Kings are hitting their threes like they normally do, this game is so much more a blowout. But they kind of stopped rebounding. Wizards got some offensive rebounds. And the Wizards were just able to get into the paint a lot more. And they scored 29 points in the quarter, which was their highest scoring quarter. And now 29 points for the NBA is not actually that much, but it felt like so much against the Wizards. They got to the line a lot. You know, I think guys were just a little less locked in. Also, Jonas Valanciunas continuing to do his thing. And the focal point of the offense was Valanciunas whenever he was in. They would have Valanciunas screen for someone like Poole, and that kind of draws Sabonis, who has to contain the drive. So that lets Valanciunas get deep post position by the time Sabonis recovers. Then they were just playing one-on-one from there. If they ever did try to help, Corey Kispert was there from the three-point line as a threat. He had a couple of threes plus some attacking closeout moments. And the Wizards, I just think they got inside too easily. You know, the Kings weren't totally locked in. And that's kind of what got Sabonis 4 fouls later in that quarter. The Wizards ended up shooting 32 free throws in this game. But the Kings were always there to kind of hit a shot to stop the momentum. Malik hit a big fadeaway three to go up 14, not let them within single digits. Fox had 2 buckets inside at one point that were both Sabonis getting inside, carving out space, you know, Gortat screening Alex Sarr out of the way. One of them allowed Fox to just go one-on-one with Jordan Poole, and he hit a nice floater. The other one, Fox pump faked, Poole on the perimeter, got right by, and then the Gortat screen inside let him get an easy layup. And that's one thing Sabonis is just so good at, is carving out space inside. And one of the guys in the league that he can't do that against is Valanciunas, one of the few guys. So that's why Valanciunas is just such a tough matchup for him. But why Alex Sarr is such an easy matchup for him. And why Sabonis was able to get a million dunks because, I mean, Sabonis was driving by Alex Sarr. So it's not like Sarr could keep up with him in quickness either. But then the bench came in and Kuzma took it at Lyles a couple of times. One of them was in transition because the Kings didn't convert in transition, so they came the other way. The other one was kind of like a semi-transition moment where Keegan probably could have gotten onto Kuzma, but you know, it just didn't happen. I think sometimes I want Keegan to be more assertive on defense and like step up and be like, go corner, I got ball here. But, you know, he didn't. He stayed in corner and Lyles gets beat off the dribble by Kuzma. And so it's like we were only up 13. And being up 13, you know, it's still a good amount. But at that point, it felt like we're only up 13 because we were up like 14 at halftime. We should be extending this. And the Wizards continued to get downhill. Like I said, Kuzma drove and got Sabonis his 4th foul. And so the Kings were just letting the Wizards hang around by not totally converting offensively, letting them get inside. Alex Len came in again, and I just don't think Len was all that good protecting the rim. I've talked about that a lot this season. I don't feel like he's been the same player as he has been in the past, but also guys leaving him out to dry, just letting guys drive by. There was that one play where Len got called for the foul, and I didn't notice it live time, but they challenged it. He had gotten elbowed in the face, so it was a successful challenge, but the Wizards kept the ball. How is it not an offensive foul? Like, it has to be a foul on someone, because Len did foul him with his arm, but it was because he got elbowed in the face. So either he didn't get elbowed in the face and it's a foul on Len, or he did and it's a foul on, I think, Kispert. So that was just very weird. It seemed like they came to the one conclusion that it couldn't be, that it was a foul on no one. Like, it was a foul on someone. But Keon hit 2 big threes towards the end of the third quarter. Not that final one, 2 before that final one at the end of the third. And with Sabonis out, we needed Fox to, carry the offense. And his distribution was great. His passing was great. But we needed him to score a little, and he just was a little off. He was missing inside. And he tried to drive inside, lost the ball, but, gets tied up for the jump ball with Valanciunas with like 4 seconds. Somehow wins that jump ball out to Keon, and Keon hits the crazy 3 to end the quarter up 13. So, yeah, the Wizards got within 10. That was the closest they had been. So, again, these momentum threes from Monk and Keon, both of them just kept hitting these momentum threes just to keep them out of single digits. And Keon just bailed us out with 3 threes to end that quarter. And then he started the fourth, hit another one, I think. Yeah, they weren't all in a row. Or no, they were. Yeah, they were all in a row. It was 4 straight threes for the Kings offense. There were possessions in between where the Kings missed, but he went on a run where he scored 12 straight points for the Kings. And then the Wizards, they kind of hung around while Valanciunas was in. Fox had a quick score, but Valanciunas again was giving him the work. And they were getting inside on Len and getting to the free throw line again. Felt like kind of layup lines for Corey Kispert. But again, Keon answers with another big 3. Also, the Wizards missed some free throws, which was nice. I was wondering, if Valanciunas had stayed in, I was wondering, could you throw Keegan on Valanciunas? So then when Valanciunas comes up and tries to screen for someone, then it's not Sabonis there. You can switch that. Then you can just try to swarm Valanciunas with bodies, not have Sabonis match up one-on-one with him. Or when he does go to set that screen, have Sabonis kind of switch off with someone else real quick. Those are just things I was thinking about. But some good moments from Monk to get to the line. Sabonis with an offensive rebound and score. Keon took another bad step, which I was pretty worried about. But, he was limping, but as he gets back on defense, he stops Jordan Poole with his back. And I'm like, no one else on this team has been able to stop drives in the second half facing their opponent. But Keon just did it with his back turned. Why do you all suck at defense compared to Keon? Keon is actually better at defense than most of the guys on this team with his back turned. But the Kings called timeout because of that. And then Valanciunas came out. And so again, the Wizards, you're bringing in a lineup where now I feel comfortable that we'll close this game out. And I just think that's so horrible. And as a Wizards fan, you're like, man, we're staying in this. Let's go. Valanciunas is keeping us in it. And then you're like, oh, in comes the closing lineup. And now it's over because you just turned the ball over twice. DeMar got a slam. Sabonis forced a Kuzma turnover. Monk ooped it up to Keegan. And then another steal. Fox hit ahead to Monk for the windmill jam to finish it off. So just the second Valanciunas goes out, it's over. So I just think that's a horrible thing. Garbage time highlights. Len hit a 3. Isaiah Crawford scored his first NBA points. And what was really cool about the Crawford thing is, like I talked about, I'm coming out with this video in a couple days with evaluating individuals at the midway point of the season. And the thing that I said about Crawford, giving a little sneak peek, is I love in the G League how, he's been hitting his threes, but also he's been attacking closeouts off of his threes, getting into the mid-range, doing a little spin, and hitting a little mid-range shot in the paint. And so just like we've been seeing Keon do, Crawford has been developing a move to attack closeouts from. And he did that exact thing in this game. Attacks a closeout, gets into the mid-range, does a little spin, hits a mid-ranger. So I always just think it's so cool when you see a guy work on something in the G League and then see him come into the NBA and implement it. Like, that's not something that Isaiah Crawford just freestyled. That's something he works on a ton. So, solid win for the Kings. One where they get up double digits. Would have been nice if they could have gotten up 20 plus earlier, but they weren't knocking down their threes. So, you just kind of play a game where you get up 10 plus and then you kind of play even the rest of the way and come away with an easy win. And these are the types of games that the Kings need to win. So going into some individual performances, Sabonis just dominant. That foul trouble is a little worrying, but 32 minutes, 12 for 16 from the field for 29 points, and of course 2 for 3 from the three-point line to extend his league-leading three-point percentage. 18 rebounds, 5 turnovers. Again, sloppy game, but super dominant against Alex Sarr. DeMar had a big first half. I think he had 15 points, but not a great second half, but he did enough. So he had 24 points, 9 for 21 from the field, 6 for 7 from the line, chipped in 6 rebounds and 2 steals and a block. Nothing crazy, just a normal DeMar game, and it was interesting. He took 21 shots. Normally that's Fox's field goal attempt number, and Fox took a lot less. Fox took 12, made 4 of them, went 0 for 5 from the field, continues to be very good at the free throw line, 4 for 4, but 12 points and 13 assists. 13 assists. That's not something you see from Fox too often. He's not a guy that usually gets 10 plus assists in a game, but he was getting into the lane, getting kickouts, or finding Sabonis just running down the middle of the lane for a big dunk. So a nice game from Fox. Also got a couple steals, got a block. I mean, everyone got steals. Yeah, everyone in the rotation, the 8-man rotation, so I'm not counting Kevin Huerter in that. Anyone who got over 10 minutes had a steal. Monk, huge, 8 for 15 from the field and 3 for 6 from 3, 23 points, 4 assists. No turnovers. It was his day to score, and he did that. Big time 3-point shots to maintain the lead. And then you had Keegan. He only scored 4 points. Played some very good defense, though. Just went 0 for 5 from 3. And like I mentioned before, that one play where he dished off to Sabonis, that's a cool play because that's just something you don't see often from him. The playmaking ability that, hopefully he develops a little bit. He's never going to be some big time playmaker, I wouldn't think. But he's got to, make some good decisions when he's attacking. So it's good to see that. Then off the bench, you have Keon Ellis, 6 for 8 from the field and from 3. All attempts are from 3 for 18 points. And it felt like we were back at the start of the season where you have Sabonis knocking down the threes and you have Keon knocking down the threes when nobody else can. I mean, that's what it was at the start of the season. So he's already, that probably puts him well above 43% on the season from 3, just shooting it so confidently. And there were also moments, I think it was in the fourth quarter, maybe in the third, but I think in the fourth, where the closeout was there. So he puts it on the ground and he's evaluating and looking for options, and nothing really happened out of those, but you could see he was trying to make something happen. And so he has that confidence to really try to make something happen. Lyles with 20 minutes, very quiet game from him, and went 0 for 3 from 3, just 4 points and 5 rebounds. Like I said earlier, got beat by Kuzma coming down the lane hard a few times. Lately just has not been knocking down his 3. So quiet game from him. I'm sure he'll start knocking down the 3s soon because that's just always how it is with him. And then Alex Len played 16 minutes, 4 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals. 3 of those boards were offensive. I felt like he could have been more of a force around the rim as a rim protector. Felt like he wasn't quite in the right spots sometimes, and that's really what he needs to do. The offensive rebounds are great, but he wasn't able to stop Valanciunas, which, that's just... Valanciunas is, again, turns into someone else when he plays the Kings, so fine. But if he's not going to be giving that great rim protection, I don't see a point to playing him, because the only thing right now that he really provides offensively is the offensive rebounding. Again, he's a solid passer, but that's just not really what we need from him. And I think it just clogs up the offense too much when he's out there to really justify it. I think if he's out there, he needs to be out there when DeMar is cooking from the mid-range or when Fox is cooking from the mid-range. And you don't really need that spacing then. And maybe you just need someone to set a hard screen. And then you have Kevin Huerter, who played 9 minutes for only 3 points. I think all of those points were in garbage time. Yeah, he had a layup, went 1 for 2 from the line. So another bad game from Huerter. another game where he doesn't play much, and they tried him and he didn't work, and things went south when he went into the game. And I mean, there's just no chance he has any value, and there's no chance he'll ever have any value on the trade market at this point. And that's probably been true for a while now, but there's no sense in playing him to try to get his trade value up or anything like that. And then, I already talked about Crawford. Not much to talk about for McDermott or McLaughlin. The Kings now 2 games above 500, continuing this nice streak, 6th game in a row that they've won at home. Their next game is at home before, I believe, they go on a big road trip here, but they play against Golden State at home on ESPN. Golden State has had some injury problems, so I don't know who will play for them. I believe they play tomorrow, so we'll see a little bit who plays in that game. But I know Steph has had a little bit of an injury, Draymond, Pajemski, Kyle Anderson, Kuminga. So hard to really say, like, here's the key to stopping the Warriors when we don't even know who's going to play. And we'll see if Devin Carter is back for the Kings, because he had a little injury on the shoulder that I believe he had surgery on. So that's not encouraging. I mean, it doesn't sound bad, but it's definitely worrying. But the Kings blew out the Warriors really badly, embarrassed them in San Francisco on the 5th of January. Outscored them by 30 points. Let's do it again. We lost to the Lakers really 3 times in our darkest hours, and then 1 at the start of the season. So we got swept by them. So we got swept by the Lakers. Let's take that anger out on the Warriors and just sweep the Warriors now, because we're feeling better now. Keep this energy up, especially against a team right next to us in the standings. So anyways, that is it for this episode of the Roll Report. I will be back to recap that game against the Warriors, and before that, releasing my mid-season player review, so be on the lookout for that, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.